very stressed out behind the scenes, but try and support her as much as I can.
Completely. And your dad was an MP in Vietnam.
So yeah, funny, crazy story. He actually never went overseas.
Okay.
But his company went. So he was always training or became the POW like jail person at Fort Hood, Texas.
Really?
Yeah. So he got K9 certified, he got all these certifications he could. And then his company got deployed, I think, while he was at K9 or POW training, one of the two. And he was also the Fort Hood baseball pitcher, which is really cool.
And that's why he didn't go overseas.
Well, they gave him an admin job. So that Barry, who was it, Barry something? He says baseball's been very, very good to me.
Right.
So
Right. Is that truly why he didn't go overseas?
Though, I mean, I used to always say it was baseball. I'm hearing more stories about he was at training and then got the POW. I think it might have been a little bit of both, but
I bet I wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah.
It's 7. We're gonna let everyone in the room.
Cool.
Great.
And are we live on Facebook and YouTube?
We are.
And the mechanics of it all.
Hey, good evening, everybody, and welcome to our BBC Happy Hour. I am Todd DiPastino. I'm the executive director of the Veterans Breakfast Club. We are headquartered here in our palatial headquarters of my attic in Pittsburgh, PA, where it is a beautiful 75-degree night. If you are on this program and you're living in Western Pennsylvania, shame on you. You should be out there and enjoying the beautiful weather. Laura Colbert is our guest tonight. She was an Army MP, Wisconsin National Guard from 2001, 2009, including 16 months of active duty as an MP in Baghdad. Laura, you're joining us from Waupaca, Wisconsin.
Yes, Wisconsin, yes.
I'm imagining Waupaca, Wisconsin is beautiful right now.
It actually, I mean, it's very comparable to what you just described. It's about 70 degrees, sunny, beautiful day. Yeah.
You should have canceled.
77 today, though.
So you should have canceled tonight and just been out there with your kids, enjoying the evening. But instead, you're with us. Thank you so much. Let me ask you also, though, how cold does it get in Waupaca, which is way north of Madison, way north of Milwaukee in the winter?
We've gotten down to -30 wind chill. We have chickens, and we actually had to bring them into one of our porches so they could survive through that cold temperature.
It's bad when you have to bring your chickens inside. Yes. Thank you, Laura. Well, thank you for joining us. Scott Master says, I'm Toronto. That's
Toronto's kind of equal to us, though, on the
same latitude.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
We're right next to the lake, and the lake moderates the climate.
Totally. Yeah.
Got it. Okay. Well, Laura's going to be our focus of our conversation tonight because she is the author of this book, and I will show you the cover. Many of you have seen it already because we've shared it. Here it is. It's called SIRENS, How to Peace Standing Up, or SIRENS, an alarming memoir of combat and coming back home. Great title. I love it. And here is a picture of Laura here when she was an MP. We're going to ask her about why she joined, what the experience was like, what it was like, especially coming home. And I just asked her before we went live here, what would she say to her 9-year-old daughter, Lily, if Lily came 10 years from now and said, hey, I want to join the Army, Mom, I want to be just like you. What would she say? So we're going to cover that this evening. But first, of course, we have a few announcements. First of all, I want to say hi to Sean Hall. Hello, Sean.
Hi, good evening. How's it going?
Good. How's Mount Lebanon where you are?
It's beautiful over here. That San Diego cool that I wish it could stay every day, every hour.
I know, it's heavenly. Absolutely heavenly. Hey, and I think I see some new people. Is that Mary Sheffield? Mary Sheffield? Is that you from?
Yeah, Mary Staffeld, yes.
Staffeld. Okay.
Staffeld. Mm-hmm.
Staffeld. I'm sorry. Staffeld.
No, that's all right.
All right. I'm going to jump right into Mary first, just in case she has to take off. It's probably 150 degrees in Fort Worth right now?
About 95, we had a cold front come through this morning.
Well, this is Mary. She is a 22-year veteran of the United States Air Force with a very interesting story all her own. I've read up a little bit about her. She joined, well, you could say, but I believe you joined the Air Force first in like 1978 or 76.
78, that's when I originally went to basic training.
And then after a 19-year hiatus, you came back?
Yes, I did.
And why in the world would you come back? I know the answer, but you joined in 1978, got out in 1986, and then in 2005, you joined again.
I did, yes.
Why is
I
that?
found out I could, so I did. But like most people, when you leave the military, you think you're making the best decision. And I knew pretty quickly that I had made the wrong decision. But because of the downsizing happening in the mid-'80s, I wasn't able to come back in because of the children I had while I was on active duty. Try to figure that one out. It's
Right.
a whole crazy thing.
Right.
But in 2005, I was out there looking around on military.com to see what my military service was worth, what I could use it for. And lo and behold, I got a little pop-up, said, you think you can't? Maybe you can. Contact a recruiter. And 2 weeks later, I went through MEPS and was back in.
And you were back in. And man, the Air Force must have changed unbelievable amount in the 19 years you were gone.
Absolutely.
Well, first of all,
Lots
there were
changes.
2 wars going on, one in Iraq, one in Afghanistan, and you hopped in the middle of it and helped to train and prepare those who were going to be sent overseas, I guess, right?
Yeah, quite a bit of that. And then I was a first sergeant and deployed doing that. And 3 times I deployed as a first sergeant.
How about that? And this is you, I think, receiving an NCO of the Year award.
That was, yes, that was one that I got from the Air Force Association.
How about
Mhm.
that? Here's another one. Is this like a re-enlistment?
It was my very last, which was really, really hard because I knew that the day was coming that I was going to have to take the uniform off for good because I was getting too old. I was aging out. So I had to do it. So my husband needed to re-enlist. So we both did it together at my squadron.
Oh, is that great?
Yeah.
And I asked you to come on because I believe you're the director of this organization called Roll Call in Fort Worth, Texas.
Yep.
And I said to you in an email, I sent you an email and I said that I don't think I've ever run across an organization more like the Veterans Breakfast Club than Roll Call. I mean, you could see if you take a look at that picture on the lower right, this is something that you do once a month in Fort Worth. You get veterans together and have them share stories, right?
Yep. And that was a small luncheon. Our luncheon we just had this last Friday was about 350. That room was completely packed.
Amazing.
And we usually have one primary guest speaker, and our guest speaker was a gentleman named Ken Cordier. He was a POW for 6 years, 3 months, and 2 days. He will stop you if you forget the 2 days.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Amazing story.
And I'm going to share, if I can, your website with folks so they can get a sense of what you do. You do a lot more than the one. I don't know if I'm sharing the right one. Let me see here. You do a lot more than the one event a month. You have outreach. You have a very cool mobile museum that you take around, correct?
We do. And the mobile museum was donated to us by a gentleman named Bob Sparenberg, who came here as a young man from Belgium and still remembers what the Americans did for his country in World War II as he lived through it. So he donated this trailer to us, and we have outfitted it. And what it will do is travel wherever we're invited. To include at the luncheon, we'll bring it out, and it on the walls has the pictures and stories of the men and women in our local area that have served. Those are their uniforms. Those are their pictures and their stories so that we can keep the stories of our local veterans alive. We've done it, whether mobile museum or one of our members, our board members, Roy Davis, We'll go to assisted living centers, to any organization. We've gone into schools, and we don't always have to take the mobile museum. Sometimes they will give us space and we will just set up everything there and bring our veterans there to talk, whether it's to the young students, to the churches, to people at any kind of events. We've got veterans that go out and speak all over the place in DFW, and just continue to share the stories with the people that need to hear them, as well as our one Iwo Jima vet, Don Graves, who I take everywhere speaking, singing. He sings God Bless America. He sings the national anthem. They invite him all over the place. He on 4th of July, he's going to be the grand marshal of one parade, and then in the evening he's going to sing the national anthem at another event. So we just pretty much take these guys anywhere they need to go. If they need help getting to doctor's appointments, we do that. If they want people to come visit them at home, we do that. Whatever we can do to make sure that they know that they are not alone, that they have not been forgotten, that people still care about them. We celebrated this young man in this picture. We celebrated his 95th birthday this past Friday, along with three other World War II vets that we celebrated their birthdays. And his brother was killed on the USS Arizona. And we actually have gotten a piece of that to put in the museum. But we presented it to him, but we are keeping it in his name and in his brother's name, with his brother's story in the museum. And this is another, our Vietnam vet that went out and talked to schools. He's done about 3 more speaking engagements just in the last month. Just continuing to keep those stories alive and out there. Because the one thing that we have found is that if we can get them to talk, if we can get them to share their stories at a luncheon, then they're much more likely to be willing to share it with their family. One of our guys, he was a medic on Iwo Jima, and I keep trying to get him to tell his story at a luncheon, and he just keeps telling me, he'll tell me, I've spent my entire life trying to forget. And you think he's 98 years old. I've spent my whole life trying to forget. I don't want to talk about it. And then he proceeded to tell me one of his stories. But his children and his grandchildren have told me that until he started coming to roll call a couple of years ago, they had never heard any of his stories. And since he started to come, they've started to hear the stories, and they just are so grateful because they want to know. And they don't care that it's not the prettiest story. They just want to know. They want to hear what their loved one has gone through. And that's why we think it's so darn important that we continue to keep those stories alive.
Mary, you are so preaching to the converted here, not just to me, but I think to most of the people who have joined us here online. You've put word for word, what we're preaching all the time here at the Veterans Breakfast Club, because we do the same or very similar kind of thing with in-person programs. And then we also do these online programs. And I'm not a veteran. Sean Hall over here is not a veteran. So it took us a while to learn how important sharing veteran stories is for veterans themselves. I mean, we knew that we were interested and fascinated in the stories and that we were getting a lot out of them. It was hard for me to understand exactly what a veteran got out of the bargain of sharing stories. And I've learned, I can't say I completely understand it, but I've learned that it's so important for veterans to share their stories, and it connects them to the community in a much tighter way, to their own families in a tighter way. So thank you for the work that you do in Fort Worth.
Oh, you're welcome. We're hoping to expand and start to grow the organization, because we hear from people all the time, and it's good to know there's folks like you that are doing these things other places. And by the way, of our 350 or so we had at lunch on Friday, probably 100 of them were not vets. They were family, friends, volunteers.
That's it.
And just people that had a heart for veterans. Some of them had no family members that served. But they love the veterans so much, and we can't do what we do without their support. So for you and Sean, that means an awful lot to us, because you are kind of the people that help us do what we have to do. So we love what we do, and we love our veterans, and we want to continue to do it. And we hear from folks all the time that, hey, why don't we have a roll call where we are? We have over almost 1,200 people on our roster. Thank goodness they don't all come to a luncheon. We don't have enough room for them. But we, our goal is to start to expand now. We just started in 2014 with one guy and 14 World War II vets going to lunch. If you go to our website, we've got a couple of videos out there, and the whole story is out there about how we started and how we came to be. And I've been with them since 2017, and we've just grown like crazy. So the next step is find a couple more places to do this, and places like Birchman that will give us a venue for free. And all we do is pay $10 a vet or $10 a person for the food. Vets don't pay a penny. Nobody pays a penny to be a part of roll call. Vets or non-vets, but the non-vets, we ask that they cover the cost of the meal. That's all that we ask them for.
How terrific. If people want to learn more about roll call, they could go to your website, roll-call.org, roll-call.org. They could donate. If they're in the neighborhood, I'm sure they could attend an event if they'd like. They could certainly learn more. I'm in the process of scouring your website for tips and tricks, because I got to tell you, Mary, we've got the same ambitions. I mean, we're looking to schedule events outside of the Pittsburgh area, where we've been doing events since 2008. So I'll say that if you ever want to collaborate on that, somewhere outside of Fort Worth, love to work on you with that. So thank you very much, and join us anytime you can. Would always love to have you. If you want to, share highlights of recent programs or whatever, please do.
Oh, very cool. Well, I appreciate it, guys, and I appreciate y'all's time.
And I like the y'all. Where are you from originally?
I'm originally from Chicago, but I've lived in Texas a long time.
That's great. That's
I
great.
talk to my sister at home. My husband knows it. He says, you talk to your sister today, because I start to talk like I'm from Chicago again.
You start to talk Chicago.
Yeah, for
Excellent.
sure. Yeah.
Well,
but
thanks.
It's my birthday, so I'm going to hop off here and go have dinner with my husband.
Happy birthday, Mary. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks,
All
guys.
right, we'll talk to you later.
All
Okay.
right.
Hey, I want to let people know before we go any further that we will not have a program a week from tonight. We always have a Monday night program, but we won't, because Monday night is Independence Day. We're going to be closed for Independence Day. No VBC happy hour on July 4th. We'll have to see you on July 11th. But I do want you to know also that if you do live in Western Pennsylvania, we'd love you to join us on Saturday, July 2nd at 1 p.m. We are going to have a private screening of the movie Top Gun Maverick. And then we're going to have people like Don Nemchek and Ben Wright. And Ben, I think you have to leave after the movie is over. Larry Guggens, F4 pilot. We're going to kind of talk to us about what the movie gets right, about the movie gets wrong, and just the responses to it, and what flying in a combat situation entails. Again, that's Saturday, July 2nd, 1 p.m. We have about 50 people signed up for it now. That was our minimum that we needed. If you'd like to join us, we still have plenty of room. If you'd like to, just let us know that you want to join us, and it's $8 a person. Rick. Hey, Rick, you have your hand up. How are you?
Good, thanks, Todd. I just wanted to check. Does the movie start at 1, or should we be there at 12:30, or what, in order to pay and be there in time for the start?
You would think I'd have that figured out, huh, Rick?
Well, yeah. If it starts at 1, we want to be there. If the movie starts at 1, we want to be ahead.
I agree. If the movie starts at 1, you definitely want to be there early. So let's say, popcorn. Yeah, you got to get your popcorn. Yeah, so show up at 12:30 for sure. I think we'll start the movie at 1 p.m.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Thank you for clarifying that, Rick. Helping us clarify that. Hey, I wanted to say too, we just got this scheduled. Mark Spiradigliozzi helped us get this scheduled in Lancaster. Did I say that right, Mark? Lancaster, PA?
No, Todd, you can't say Spiradigliozzi or Lancaster. I just don't know what to do with it.
Oh my gosh. Lancaster. That's a double strike. Okay, we were having it in the eastern part of the state, just west of Philadelphia, at Woodcrest Villa on September 17th. We're so happy to be scheduling this in a new section of the country. So this will be Saturday, September 17th. Thank you to Mark for his kind ministrations for getting this done. We also wanted to let people know that we have our magazine. I know Ben Wright came and picked up hundreds of copies yesterday. Thank you very much for this, Ben, helping to distribute these. Don Nemchek is one of the world champions of distributing these magazines. Although, Don, what are you thinking leaving them at that bookstore? Man, we got a phone call. Somebody was pretty upset that they were left in a bookstore. And so don't be doing that again, Don. Don's muted. But you can take them anywhere else. This is how people learn. Yes, Don.
Yeah, Todd, I apologize for my indiscretion. However, I may be a little bit too aggressive, but that's what sailors do. When we're out in town and on our own, you never know what you're going to get from us. But it was a bookstore, I did that before in our previous edition at the Starbucks. And I asked the dude at the counter if it was okay to put them on a table. He said, sure, why not? Go ahead. And I had half a dozen or so in hand out of the bag. I said, well, I'm just going to put some around the table. There's a lot of old dudes there walking around on a summer day. And I thought it was going to be harmless, but I do apologize for any embarrassment incurred.
Absolutely. I thought it was very funny to get a phone call from a bookstore manager warning us not to drop magazines off at her store.
Yeah, I got my thoughts on that.
I know.
I won't share them
All right. All right. Good. All right. Well, thank you. Thank you for spreading the word about the VBC magazine. I just want to let people know we're happy to send out, 10 copies, 5 copies, 50 copies, 100 copies if you'd like to distribute them. This is the marketing that we do, and this is how people find out about the work that we do. And of course, we also have sponsors. D&D Auto Salvage, a really important sponsor of ours. They have re-upped again for a third quarter. We're very proud and happy about that. They sponsor this program. They sponsor the Scuttlebutt, and they are an auto salvaging metal recycling facility. They have 2 of them, one in Tarentum, one in Lawrenceville. You can find out more about what they do and get quotes at dndautosalvage.com. And then, of course, we have tobacco-free Adagio Health. They are on a campaign to try and reduce tobacco use, vaping, and they have a popular quit line, 1-800-QUIT NOW. They also encourage policies that encourage. They encourage policies. They promote policies that discourage tobacco use, and they educate the public about the hazards of tobacco use. And you can find out more at tobaccofree.adagiohealth.org. So those are our sponsors. And Sean, we have a Scuttlebutt that came out today. Did we not?
Yes, we do. It's interesting because tonight, we have 2 wonderful female veterans on. I also had a female veteran on the Scuttlebutt this week, Marine Corps veteran and Military Times journalist, Rachel Nostrand. She recently took a trip to Ukraine. We talk about that, but mainly we talk about her story. She comes from a very extensive military background. Very extensive military family. Her mom, her dad, her stepdad, her sister, they've all served or are currently serving. She only spent 5 years in and unfortunately had to leave due to medical reasons. But she lived several lives while in the Marine Corps. And we talk about that, hear all about her story and her service. And we get a bit into her time becoming an aspiring journalist, because she's really only been at it for about 6 months and was really surprised that we reached out to her. But she was excited to talk with us, and it's a great Scuttlebutt. I'll put the link in the chat if you want to listen to her story.
Yeah, Sean and I ran across this interesting article by a young woman who was in Ukraine covering the war in Ukraine. And it just said in her byline, Rachel Nostrand served in the Marine Corps, and now she's a war correspondent. And I just thought, wow, I'd like to hear more about that. So Sean, you were able to get in touch with her, and she was able to be on our program. That is so great. So that's the Scuttlebutt, released every Monday. Sean Hall is the host of it. Thank you very much, Sean. And I'm looking around. Who else do we have say hi? I see Brad Washaball is out in the woods somewhere. Ida May, how are you? Good to see you. I'm glad you're wearing earphones so you're not bothering Dale. Julia Parsons. Hi, Julia. Thank you for joining us. I have to tell Laura, Julia Parsons is 101-year-old code-breaker, a Navy wave from World War II. She joins us on the... How are you, Julia?
I'm fine. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, I still haven't gotten my copy of the magazine.
Yes, we are. I don't know what happened to it, Julia. I'm sorry. It should have reached you. It did not. So we are putting another copy. In fact, Jim Jameson, is another copy in the mail to Julia? Let's see, Jim.
Yes, I did. It was mailed on Friday.
You know, I was just talking about this with somebody today. Jim Jameson is a Air Force veteran from the 1960s. He has been a board member of the Veterans Breakfast Club, and he is now a very hardworking volunteer. He sends magazines out to people all the time. You see him at a lot of our in-person events, kind of helping at the front desk. Jim, thank you for the work you do.
Oh, you're welcome.
On behalf of our.
You really enjoy it.
Okay. Well, so Jim claims, Julia, that he put a magazine in the mail to you. If you don't receive it, complain to him. Okay.
All right, I will.
Okay. Very good.
Thank you.
Very good.
Thank you.
Ken Kazak, we're going to get to you, Laura. Don't worry, I haven't forgotten. Ken Kazak, you have a bike ride coming up for July 4th.
Yes. Good evening, Todd. July 4th, we're doing a bike ride to the Mitchell Page Memorial in West Mifflin. And I think the thing I really want to share with people, that if you go to the waterfront in Homestead, which, Laura, that's a shopping restaurant district here, in a 2-mile radius, there are 4 monuments for Medal of Honor recipients. So we've ridden bikes to them on multiple occasions. And on July 4th, early in the morning, we're going to do the ride to the Mitchell Page Memorial.
Excellent. Can you tell us a little bit about who Mitchell Page was?
So the research I did, first off, I'm half Serbian. Mitchell Page was Serbian. His parents' name was Pajak. Graduated from McKeesport High School in 1936, hitchhiked to Baltimore to enlist. I don't know why he couldn't enlist here, but he was in the Marines by September of 36. And he had a military career before 1942 when he found himself in Guadalcanal, and received the Medal of Honor for his activities there. Evidently, all the other machine gunners were out of commission, and he just ran back and forth on the line, firing each machine gun till it was out of service. And so he's the only Serbian individual to receive the Medal of Honor, and one of 9 Eagle Boy Scouts to receive the Medal of Honor. When in 1998, Hasbro made a GI, an action figure for every branch of the service, and they used Mitchell Page's likeness for the GI Joe doll, the Mitchell Page action figure.
So I'm showing a picture of that Mitchell Page action figure. Doesn't look a thing like him.
It doesn't. He doesn't look like a Serbian guy.
No, he didn't have red hair, did he?
No, I don't. Yes, I don't. Not at all.
Okay.
Not at all.
And I think you're. What am I doing here? Is this the memorial or the monument you're writing to?
No, that's. I don't even. I got to be honest with you. Thanks for putting that up. I don't know where that is.
Okay, I thought I saw Charleroi.
Wow, the Park Lit in West Mifflin, it has neither of those.
Huh. Okay.
I'll have to find that out.
Okay, so that is, and where are you meeting on July 4th? If anybody wants to join you?
Well, if anybody knows any bike riders that might want to come along, it's called the Eliza Furnace Trailhead. So it's close to the Hot Metal Bridge. You can park there. So if you have friends who are cyclists, we're going to do this early so they can share or enjoy the rest of their day. It's going to be a great ride. It's only 24 miles round trip.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you. Does anybody else have any other announcements they'd like to make? Anything you don't want to talk about before we turn to Laura? Feel free to speak up as we're talking to Laura, because Laura has a lot of angles, fascinating angles into her story. And she's also shared with me a lot of photographs. Some of them I will not share. Some of them I will not show. But they are compelling. They're interesting. And I'm sure there's a story behind each one. So I'll be sharing photographs along the way. But the first photo, of course, I want to share is a picture of her book, How to Pee Standing Up. Laura, what compelled you to write your story as a memoir?
Well, I will tell you that the entire time I was deployed, I journaled, and these are both my journals. You can see that I put pictures of my family members on the fronts and backs, and have 500 journal entries. I ended up day 500, even though we were not quite home yet. We were at Fort McCoy, Wisconsin. So I got home and I realized that, I had a pretty good story to tell. We lost the very first soldier, female soldier in the history of the National Guard in a combat related incident. And I was on the same road she was the night before, got attacked the exact same way. We came out unscathed. And then the following night, she took that route home. We took a different one. And I heard everything unfold over the SINGAR radios. So, I mean, it was very close to my heart, and we received 30 some Purple Hearts in our unit. And there was a lot of really tragic and also, I mean, if you've been to war, there's crazy joyful times, excitement and fear and sadness and love and, like all those feelings. So it was a story I thought was worth telling. And I also did suffer from post-traumatic stress when I got home, and I consider myself a very strong human being. And the fact that I finally had to go get help, I was like, you know what, other people need to hear this, because if they're struggling too, and they are too afraid to get help or feel like they can get over this on their own, I want them to know that they're not alone. And I found that a lot of civilians that I've read the book it's really helped to bridge the civilian and military divide. And people who have military people in their lives have really appreciated reading this book because it gives them a little bit more empathy about what soldiers go through.
I'm going to jump ahead a little bit and ask you, when you joined the National Guard or before you were sent to Baghdad,
Yeah.
Did anybody warn you about post-traumatic stress?
Well, just so you know, we were the very first wave after the Marines took over Iraq. So we had no idea what the war was going to be like. There was no such thing as an IED in our vocabulary. We were driving without doors in our Humvees. We didn't even have plates in our vests yet because they hadn't been produced.
So you were under-armored, you were driving under-armored Humvees.
Right. But it was like we were in a parade everywhere we went. People would come out and wave to us and cheer us on and give us a thumbs up because we liberated them, right?
Yeah.
Within 6 months, that liberation turned to occupation, and the war did a complete 180, and we were avoiding IEDs on the roadsides. We were getting shot at all the time. We were getting mortared nightly within our compound. You name it, and it was happening to us. They were giving us the middle fingers and the thumbs down and throwing rocks at our gunners. I mean,
and you saw that flip. You saw that go 180 degrees in your 1 year tour.
Within 6 months.
Within 6 months.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my goodness. Don Nemchek, you're exactly right. Thank you so much for reminding me today, because you're the one who told me, Don, today is National PTSD Awareness Day.
Thank you. Yes. Yeah. So, I mean, we didn't know what the war was going to look like, or, we just figured it was going to be some sort of adventure peacekeeping mission. They said we'd be gone for 6 months tops because we were National Guard, and we got extended about five real times while we were there, and then finally got to go home.
And again, you're National Guard. I mean, this is in 2003, you arrived. In 2001, you were a freshman at the University of Wisconsin-Madison. Mm-hmm. I'm assuming 18 years old.
I was 19 when I signed. 19. Yeah.
When you joined the National Guard.
Yeah, I was late for my grade, or old for my grade. I have a twin brother who wasn't quite ready to enter kindergarten when I was. So
typical boy.
I know. So anyways, yeah, I was 19 when I went to college, and I joined in February of 2001. So 6 months before September 11th happened. So,
I mean, I'm 56 years old. So I think of anybody who's 19 years old or 20 years old as a kid. Yeah. So to me, you were a kid, yeah. Joining. I'm sure you had no idea, although, you really had no idea of that this was going to lie ahead, right?
Right. One of my really good friends said, do it. What's going to happen in the next 6 years? Because we had been living in so much peacetime. And then 6 months later, September 11th happened. So it really was a shock.
You do come from a military family. You said your dad served in the
Mm-hmm.
Army
Mhm.
during the Vietnam era. He ended up not going to Vietnam, and there's an interesting story about that. You had a sister also who served, correct?
Brother.
Oh, brother, I'm sorry.
Mhm. Yeah, I don't have any sisters. Just Connor is raising his hand. I don't know if he has.
Yeah. Hey, Connor, thank you for joining us from Lafayette. I know I'm imagining that you have stories to share of somebody you talked with recently, of a veteran you've talked with recently. Oh, we can't hear you, Connor.
I saw the president of the Roll Call organization, which is a World War II veterans organization. Is there a way I can contact with her, because she has World War II veterans in there as well?
Oh, she sure does. Yes. Why don't you send me an email and I will, or I will just connect you with her. Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
This is a photo of my great uncle's discharge papers while he was in the Navy. I come from a military family too. My great grandfather was a World War II veteran, and his brother that was born after him, two brothers actually, because they were both twins after my pops was born. So they both served in the Navy, but they never talked much about it. Well, they're passed away now, so I cannot ask them.
Right.
This is what my great aunt, who just had a birthday a few days ago, sent me this discharge paper from her residence, because she knows that I'm interested in that kind of stuff.
And
she
I've
just
got
had
to
her 97th birthday a few days ago.
God bless her. Hey, if anybody knows a World War II vet who would like to talk to a young man like Connor, who's 17 years old, Louisiana, he loves to have these conversations with veterans and then kind of share what he's learned here with us at the VBC. Thank you, Connor. I appreciate you joining us very much, and look forward to hearing more from you and when you talk to veterans. We're going to continue a conversation with Laura and focus on her story tonight. Laura.
Yes.
When you saw that we invaded Iraq in March 2003, you ended up going in June, I believe.
So we were put on active duty on March 15th, and we did not invade or bomb Baghdad until March 19th. So
Okay.
I was at Fort McCoy, Wisconsin, already training for a war that hadn't even started yet. And we listened to them bombing Baghdad from the barracks on a radio, because there were no TVs. And that was like our fate unfolding in front of us.
Was your expectation that you would go there and just be, temporary, kind of a holding operation after the liberation?
Yeah, it was interesting, because the whole time we were at Fort McCoy, which was a whole month and a half, they had no idea really what they were going to do with us. So first we were going to take over for a company that was going to leave from the United States. So we'd go to some base in the United States. Then we were going to go to Kuwait and be back up in Kuwait. And then they decided we were going to go to Baghdad or somewhere in Iraq. And it was just this back and forth. We finally got shipped to Kuwait, and then we sat there for a month and a half waiting for our Humvees to meet us.
Right.
And then 3 days after Humvees arrived, we drove straight up to Baghdad, and I was the driver of the Humvees, so I drove the whole way.
I see. You drove the whole way.
28 hours of driving in 2 days.
Whoa. Was that cool as a 22-year-old, or was that exhausting at any age?
It was exhausting. It was so exhausting and probably entirely dangerous. And I used my dad's hunting trick, his deer hunting trick. I had like Jolly Ranchers and Tootsie Rolls next to me that I was just like popping every chance I got just to like help me stay awake. Anyways, that's where I learned how to pee, through my phone.
That's okay. That's the trick. And did you know at the time too that I'll use the term, we use it with Julia Parsons all the time, about something of a pioneer, in the sense that, before you and before 2003, there weren't many women who experienced combat.
Mm-hmm.
Did you know that you were like a part of this history?
Well, I will tell you that when I signed up, I had two choices. I could become a mechanic or a military police officer. And I said, which one's closest to the front lines? And they said MP. And I said, that's what I'm going to do, because I wasn't going to be in the military just to like sit back on my haunches and not do anything. And you know, the term of front lines is extremely archaic. It's not like we are, you know, head to head with anybody anymore. And anytime you go overseas, if you're on the FOB or not, you're in danger, because they have weapons in their arsenal that can penetrate walls or, you know, fly over them. So anyways, yeah, it was fun, if that's a word, to prove that women could handle it. It was an enjoyable experience for me to prove that women could execute the same tasks that men could to an equal to level.
I see Bob Miswell laughing at some of the things that you're saying, especially having to hurry up and wait in Kuwait, right? To have the equipment catch up with you. Bob served in Vietnam and Iraq, I think around the same time. I'm going to share some pictures, Laura, if you want to comment on them as I'm clicking through them. I'm looking at this arm. This is obviously a colleague of yours.
Yes. So in the book, I changed everybody's name. So if you've read it, this is Kirking. Her real name is Courtney Fad. She was one of my best friends while deployed, and this is her smallpox shot 1 week after we could take the Band-Aids off. And you can see it's still just gross and nasty.
Yeah.
And that's, you know, and that's what gives everybody those scars. And, you know, if anybody's got them, you know.
Wow. Okay. And then here you are. Is this earlier in your deployment?
This was probably about halfway through, or maybe within the first third, or like, you know, after being there for 6 months. So that's my team leader, Ken Preer. To the left on the picture, he's known as Hart in the book. And then my gunner, his name is Thompson. Hart and I got along amazingly well. We still talk. He comes to my talks. We're going to golf together July 11th. He's a really, really good person. Thompson and I, we totally just never stayed in contact for no reason other than we're just very different people. He's a great guy. He's quiet and I'm not.
Can you give us a sense of what your mission was, what your job was?
I was the driver of the Humvee, always, and Thompson was our gunner always. And then Ken Preer sat in the passenger seat and told me where to go and what to do. If we got to an intersection, he would say, you know, gun it and go through, or hold, or push this car out of our way because we're in a kill zone right now. And I would execute. I was typically the lead Humvee in every convoy because Sergeant Hart was such an incredible sergeant. And I humbly was a pretty good driver. I had a brush guard and never ever bent it or dented it, and probably had the most touches of Iraqi vehicles than anyone.
Can you say that again? What does that mean?
So, like I said, there were a lot of intersections where we had to just get through, because you don't want to be stalled in an intersection and all of a sudden get attacked or have an ambush set up on you.
Got it. Okay.
So my job was to get the convoy, to get the intersection to open up so that our convoy could get through. So I would often have to come up next to vehicles and nudge them gently to the side so that they would let us through, or give a little bit of a love tap to the back of a vehicle to get them going so that we could get through. And my goal was I never wanted to injure another Iraqi vehicle. And I was very good at those gentle nudges and touches so that they could drive away and we could drive away.
That's fascinating. See, that's perfect, because I've never heard anything quite like that. Is having that feather touch where, you know, you're not an occupier, you're a liberator. And if you start smashing cars out of the way, I mean, you turn the population against you.
Yeah.
You have to have a softer touch. That is so interesting. And you can see SPC Naylor here is right on the.
That was me. And my on the inside there were car stickers. So Sergeant Hart's wife would send him stickers, and every time I would nudge an Iraqi car, I'd get another sticker and I'd date it, and it was coated with car stickers on the inside.
Here's a picture. It looks like a picture of you with
with
your weapon there. Yeah,
yes.
Pretty intimidating.
Getting ready to go one morning. 115 degrees that day, probably.
Right.
You know, and I'm gonna put it all out there. As a woman, we there's a lot of things that men don't realize. And as a woman, wearing a bra in that heat caused a ton of chafing.
Yep.
And when you're wearing 40 pounds of vest, you don't need a bra. So like, I didn't wear one because otherwise I'd be red and bloody afterwards.
And I mean, we've had our guys tell us that about underwear in Vietnam. So it's absolutely the same, very similar kind of a thing.
Yeah.
I mean, those are the kinds of things that I think you talk about in your book.
Yeah.
That most people, not only men, but most people don't really consider
right
when they're thinking of women in service. And especially in combat situations. I love this picture. Somebody obviously sent you a happy birthday cake.
So I got 3 cakes on my birthday. I got one from my company, which is this one, and it actually says happy birthday, Laura. A local bakery made this for us, and pistachio filling. It's absolutely delicious. This is my 22nd birthday, and it was the first birthday I've ever spent away from my twin brother. And it was really hard on me, like way harder than I ever would have imagined. So I was tearing up and crying a lot that day. And one of the translators brought me a little chocolate cake that said like, I love you, Laura, on it. And he still to this day sends me flowers on Facebook. And then I got a heart-shaped cake from one of the Iraqi police officers. And when he handed it to me, he said, we're your family here. And it was just the sweetest sentiment. So they really did care about us and vice versa. And one of the Iraqi police officers actually went out and got me a satellite phone so I could call my twin brother.
Oh, wow. What did you think of the Iraqi people? You have several pictures of.
Yeah. Just first of all, for a country that does not have much money, they would give you anything that they could give you off of their bodies or off of their homes or their vehicles. We went through a deserted military installation that had a bunch of squatters living in it. And as we're driving through, this woman is making rock bread on her dirt oven, her mud oven. And she's trying to hand this to us. And she's in like rags, and her cow looks like it's not eaten in 2 weeks. And she's trying to feed us.
Right.
So we gave her some mints because that's what we had in exchange. And what you saw there were the kids that were standing outside the police station. And the kids were, they were more of a curse than a blessing, because they were so curious all the time to what was happening that they would just sit outside of the police station walls and just stare at us and chant Good America or beg for food or water. But the reason why they were a curse is because they were always putting their lives on the line by coming near to us. Yeah. And so I always feared the worst for these kids. So growing up in Wisconsin, I don't know if you saw, can you toggle just back down a little bit to that boy in yellow? He's wearing a Michigan shirt. I saw Bucks, Badgers, Brewers. I saw a boy wearing a shirt that said world's best grandma, and a guy wearing a shirt that says I'm not sassy, I'm a redhead, and another guy wearing a shirt that says that's Miss Bitch to you. And I'm like, all these people, they're so like, it was just so entertaining. So anyways, lots of mixed emotion about the Iraqis, but they definitely had very giving hearts. The Iraqi men definitely ate up us American women a lot, in that they stared at us a lot. We got proposed to a lot. We got lots of random gifts. I mean, I had all these fake flowers gifted to me. I was told that this guy would trade in a satellite scooter or satellite phone and a scooter in exchange for me as my bride price. So there was just a lot of different infatuations happening, I guess. This picture you have here is of me arm wrestling one of the Iraqi police officers. And I actually beat one of them, not this guy, but a different one. And they physically removed him from the police station because he lost to a girl. I think they let him back in again, but he was physically kicked out. So I felt a little bit bad about that.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I mean, did you have problems kind of asserting your authority? as an MP?
At first, yes. So our platoon sergeant, he, we got the first day we got there, and this is the decrepit police station. There is, in the back, you can see the sewage, and it's green and it stinks in the ground. There's no windows besides like 2 that are still intact. The rest are just shards in the window panes. There's cigarette butts in every corner. It stinks. There's blood stains, and there's like burn damage and soot in places. So we get there, and my platoon sergeant says to me, "Naylor, you're in charge of making sure that this place stays clean." And I was like, "Are you telling me this because I'm a female? Like, is this what it's boiling down to?" Like, that did not make me happy, first of all. But he's like, "No, you're going to tell this Iraqi police officer right here that what he needs to do to clean." So I was in charge of making sure it was getting done.
Right.
So we called that Iraqi police officer Mr. Clean, and he responded to that name. When I would say, "Hey, Mr. Clean, go sweep the stuff out from underneath the steps," or whatever I was telling him, he'd, no. And then I'd go and through an interpreter tell this other police officer, and that other police officer would come up to him and cuff him on the back of the head and yell at him in Arabic, and then Mr. Clean would do what I said. So there were some instances where we had to definitely teach them that we were equal and that they needed to respond to us as a soldier. Right. And they started to do that, and which was good, but it was definitely that surprise at first that, whoa, there are actually women here.
This is one photo that kind of makes me a little sick to look at. This is that cesspool that you're talking about, or a different cesspool? This
is a crater of a bomb that destroyed our police station.
Destroyed the police station.
Yes. And this is, so this was a water main that busted in the crater. Okay, so when we got there, this was a dry hole in the ground, and you can see the soldiers standing in the back. To give you some definition, this is one single vehicle-borne bomb.
Wow.
And this was October 27th. We lost 5 Iraqi police officers that day who didn't make it, and there was actually a squad of soldiers at the police station when this bomb went off. And through all of these serendipitous things that happened, none of them died, but there was unconscious soldiers, there was busted eardrums. One guy had to get staples put in his head and his ear sewn back on, just quote unquote minor injuries from this explosion. And they got on the radio and they said, "You need to go to El Shad now." There was an RPG. This is what they said on the radio. So we're driving there. I get there in 25 minutes instead of the typical 45. I'm driving down the wrong side of the street. I'm going through intersections like there's no tomorrow. And we show up and there is still dust settling. And there's already estimated 2,000 to 4,000 people standing in the streets trying to find out what happened. Windows are blowing out in a 4-block radius from this one bomb.
And I'm not sure if this is the police station or
that
another.
is indeed the side of the police station. It was shifted on its foundation about an inch. And then if you can see the back right there, that is a cement border that we had around our parking lot that is also destroyed. And our Humvees were not back there. That squad that was there was not back there. They were in front. All of the things that they did saved their lives, I tell you.
And this was one car bomb.
One. Yeah. So go back to the first one with the hole. So my job when we first got there was to take concertina wire and push the crowd away from the police station with a circular razor wire. And so I stood almost exactly behind where that soldier's currently standing. And I watched as these fathers were dragging out their charred and burned and dead children, the same children that I would watch while pulling guard at this police station 12 and a half hours a day for months. These same kids that I recognized as alive. And I will tell you that was a turning point for me in the war where I think I was in shock for that day. And then 2 or 3 days later, after going to the same police station over and over again, I couldn't hold myself together. I just was crying the whole day. And I was finally letting it out, I think. But, where you see the people digging in the rubble, that was a 2-story building. That was a home. I don't know if you have one of me sitting on top of the roof of the side. You can still see the side of the police station is destroyed. but there's a soldier sitting on the roof.
Oh yeah, they're boy. Okay, yeah.
I mean, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter.
No,
but,
I do have some. I have other photos of this. I'll share them here.
Yeah.
This is obviously.
Yeah, so that's just panned over. These were all homes, again, families that used to watch, sleep, and eat and socialize out on their top porches of their houses, because that's what they did. And all those pieces of metal on the ground, those are all cars that were destroyed from the car bomb. This is that crowd I was telling you about. And as you can see, I mean, you can't really see, but all of the windows in these buildings are gone. There's no windows. And that concertina wire is what we were laying to push people away, because we were still getting threats of another attack.
And it's one thing for combatants, I think, to be hurt and killed in war. I'm imagining, Laura, you had seen that. You had been a party to that before. But I guess it's another thing altogether when you have civilians, and then especially children, innocent children.
Yes, it was so traumatic. This was inside the police station. This was actually, you can kind of see my hand in the mirror, or in the picture there. That's our MP office. That's where we always sat. And again, if we had been in there, we probably would not have survived that attack.
Boy, oh boy. This is a happier shot.
This is a happier shot. So my parents, bless them, they are amazing. They sent over this snowman, this inflatable snowman, and we would work with an orphanage while we were there, and we had a Christmas party for this orphanage. It was a Catholic orphanage, and so we had a ton of gifts delivered to us from churches and family members and friends from back home. And so the kids got stuffed animals and clothing and toys and anything you can imagine. And then we played Christmas music and we danced, and we had that snowman up, and it was a really joyous occasion with them. And I actually have a footage of a man from our company with the most beautiful baritone voice singing, I'm going to screw it up, I think a beautiful Christmas song outside after this, like in the dark, all you can hear is his voice just coming out. And it was so amazing and beautiful.
I'm going to show a few more pictures and not end, but I think the one of the pictures coming up is going to be your parents, but tell us about this picture.
So this was towards the end of our deployment. We had geared up to go home in April, and then we lost Michelle Whitmer, and 2 days later they told us we were extended for 3 more months, they said 4 more months, ended up only being 2.5. But we had to move away from where we were living and move into tents where we were getting bombed every night with mortars. And we were driving at least 2 hours south every day to check on and train new Iraqi police stations and officers. And the more you drive, the more likely you are to hit an IED. And in this particular convoy, I swear I heard my gunner like slam his ammo can on top of the Humvee. And I was like, Thompson, don't do that. And then I realized this Humvee just flew right past me and slammed into this garage. And that's when I knew that it was a vehicle-borne bomb, or not a vehicle-borne bomb, I'm sorry, an IED, a roadside bomb that had hit this vehicle. Yeah. And the compression from the bomb actually. I had one hand, sorry.
Oh, sorry about that, Laura.
That's all right. The compression. The compression from the bomb actually pulled the driver out, knocked the back passenger unconscious, and he had a huge piece of shrapnel coming out of his leg. And then the gunner, we couldn't find her anywhere. We thought we lost Garcia, but she was in the fetal position. Yes, that's her, in the back of the Humvee, knocked unconscious. And then the passenger in the front actually noticed they were headed towards this garage. There was no driver, so he jumped out of the moving vehicle before they slammed into the garage.
Oh gosh. And
look at Carly's weapon. You can see that the tip of her saw is completely gone. So if her head was up even further, she could have just had some major damage. To this day, she cannot use her left arm all the way because of the damage she received. And then you can just see all of the shrapnel wounds on her face. And she's not remember this picture because she was so drugged up after going to the medics.
Right. Oh boy. Is this coming home?
Yes. So I always say this picture is the most beautiful sight in the whole world. So you can see our families way, way, way in the background, on the back right by that American flag. And you can hear them chanting. If anybody's been over in the desert area, you know how the sky is never blue. It's always orangish, yellowish hue to it. So when I came home and I looked at the sky and it was actually this amazing azul blue, like it was just, oh, amazing. And then you could smell the vegetation, like all of our senses were just super heightened when we got off. And there was, our governor was there and a whole bunch of military bigwigs were there to shake our hand. And one of the really great things was, for the first time in 16 months, I could turn my weapon in to that white truck right there and forget the serial number. I didn't have to clean it every day. I didn't have to ask somebody to look at it or watch it when I went for a run. I could just like free myself from these chunks of metal. So all of this to me is beautiful.
So when you're an MP, Laura, you have to know I ask stupid questions for a living.
There's
When you're
no
an
stupid
MP,
question.
oh yes, there are. Just you haven't been around me enough. When you're in Iraq, when you're an MP and you have a weapon, that weapon has to be with you all the time. And if it's not, it needs to be accounted for. I see Mark Spiridigliosi, which I said correctly, nodding his head, because so that weapon, Mark and Laura, that needs to be with you at all times. And if it's not, like, it has to be accounted for.
Absolutely. It was like babysitting chunks of metal the whole time.
Mark?
That was in Article 15. If you lost that weapon, you were put on trial for that.
Oh, huge deal. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And we had two. We had a pistol, a 9mm Beretta, and we had an M16.
Yeah.
I had an M16. Our gunners had a SAW, so they had even more to watch.
And a SAW is an M60, or is that a pig?
It's M2409, 249. Is that the connection?
I don't know.
Sorry, everybody.
M249 is a SIRENS.
Oh, here we go. Carl Curtis. Here we go.
Sorry.
What is it?
Yeah, it's a squad automatic.
Yeah. So I was right.
M249, yeah.
I got it right. All right.
We got the two Marines chiming in with that one. Thank you, Carl. Thank you, Brad.
Yeah. So it's a 12-pound weapon with 12 pounds of ammo connected to it. There you go. That's what it was.
There we go. That's it.
Mm-hmm.
We don't do a lot of weapon talk here at the Veterans Breakfast Club. Maybe we should. Could you tell me a little bit about this weapon?
Well, I can tell you that our barrel was longer. This is definitely an updated version, and the stock was not adjustable like this one is. But as far as its capable range, it's very similar, I believe. And again, anybody's can correct me, to a rifle, to an M16. The range is, but it's automatic, so it shoots much faster.
Okay.
And you've got a ton more ammo in an ammo container than you do in an M16.
Carl Curtis, can you add anything to that?
Nope, that's correct. It is basically an M16 that fires, automatic and a whole lot faster. It's still shooting the 5.56 millimeter.
Yep. Same effective range.
Okay.
I'm gonna sleep well tonight for remembering that.
Hey Todd,
Yes.
This is Brad. And it's the thing about a machine gun that a lot of people don't realize is if the bolt goes home, if the bolt goes forward, and there's a round in the chamber, it's going to go off whether your finger's on the trigger or not. That's the nature of a machine gun. So a SAW can be a very dangerous weapon if it's not handled correctly. And I always used to ask Marines, what condition 3 for the SAW is, because there's certain conditions you got to put the weapon in when you move and when you use it and when you don't use it. It's a lethal weapon. It's 5.56. It's linked ammo. It's got a lot of firepower, but it's only as good as its gunner.
And that's exactly what ours looked like. If you go back to Carly Garcia's picture, she's holding it too.
Okay. That is what she's holding. Okay, so it's a matter of volume. It gets the volume out more than the M16 does.
Yeah, we were driving around with some Mark 19s on our vehicles, which are grenade launchers, and you can't even shoot them off in an urban environment there's not a far enough distance where it's safe for us
Right.
for them to go off. So it was not a wise decision, in my opinion.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's Carly saw.
Okay. And I wanted to show this picture. This, I'm guessing this is your parents?
Yeah.
Your poor parents.
Oh,
They must have suffered that year.
so there's so many things I could say about this. Yeah, I have an older brother who was in Ramadi the almost entire time I was deployed. So I was in Baghdad from June 03 to July 04, and he was in Ramadi September 03 to September 04. So we overlapped for many, many months. And my dad said to me before we got deployed, he's like, this is going to be harder on you than me. And I said, Dad, that you have no idea how hard this is going to be on me. Like, it's not an appropriate thing to say, but now I'm a parent and I totally get it. I mean, every phone call I got after I got home, the few months that I was home when Joe wasn't, every phone call I got from my parents, I was dreading the worst. Imagine that times 2 for my parents. Apparently my mom was just a shell of herself the whole time we were gone. And when I got home, I was like, Dad, okay, first of all, I'm not used to human touch or like loving touch. So it was very weird for me to have arms around me or like, you know, a shoulder caress or whatever. So that was weird. And then my dad wouldn't stop looking at me. And I said, Dad, you're freaking me out. Like, you gotta stop. He's like, but Laura, you're here and you're safe. And I just want to soak it all in. And then I was like, okay. The really, I mean, my dad, both my parents are amazing. My dad's father died in 98 and he always carried a $2 bill in his wallet wherever he went. It was his lucky $2 bill. And so right before I was deployed, my dad sat me down. I said, don't make me cry. And he did. And he's like, you're going to take this $2 bill. It was your grandfather's $2 bill. And I want you to take it with you while you're deployed. So everywhere I went, I had that in my front pocket of my uniform. And then when I got home, the second we landed, I pulled that out and I gave it to my dad and I said, no, it's yours. And it was just like, yeah.
And once again, your dad was Army, so he understood, an Army veteran. He understood what you were getting into, probably in some ways more than you did.
Yeah. So if it's okay, I'll share just a little bit about his story.
Please do.
So his draft number was coming up for Vietnam and he wanted to take control. He was on his way to Australia to do marine biology and decided to join the Army instead. And he joined the military police and took every training he could. And so when his military police company was deployed, he was not done with one of his trainings. And so he got to stay home and then he became the pitcher on the Fort Hood baseball team and got an admin position and worked in the POW camp or POW at Fort Hood. So my dad never had to go, but he lost a lot of friends and has, in my opinion, definite survivor's guilt.
Oh gosh, yes. Oh my gosh, absolutely. And I also suspect that him being a great baseball pitcher had something to do with him staying at Fort Hood and being the pitcher for the Fort Hood team.
I mean, think so.
Yeah, come on. That sounds like that sounds absolutely plausible.
Yeah, let's find a job for you here so you can keep benefiting our baseball team. Yeah.
Yeah, right. Absolutely. So how long after that picture that we just saw of you with your parents, reuniting with your parents, how long did it take for it to become clear to you that something was not quite right with you?
So, I went through the first 6 months just kind of in this negative haze because the whole deployment, I kept thinking of home as this heavenly facade of nothing can go wrong. I'm going to get in my vehicle and I'm going to be able to drive and listen to whatever music I want and go wherever I want. And life is going to be just amazing. Well, no matter who you are, no matter where you are, life has its difficulties. There's still things that happen. And, loud noises would cause me to clench and thunderstorms would make me want to crawl under a table. And, like all these things were happening. And I just felt like, not myself. And then I met up with a lot of the Army girls around Christmas and they said the same thing. And it was like this weight lifted off my shoulder, like, oh, I have solidarity with these women who know what I'm going through. And then another 6 months happened and I was in a pretty good state. Then I went to sergeant school at Fort McCoy. The exact same time Katrina was plowing through New Orleans, and we went through a war scenario with grenades, fake grenades, Miles gear, which is like laser tag, but with, booms.
Right.
And I started having a panic attack, which has never happened to me before. I didn't even know what was going on. I just kept hyperventilating, and I was telling myself, I'm okay. Like, you're home. Stop it. Put your mind somewhere else. Like, this is fake. And I couldn't. And they thought I was having a heat stroke. So they started taking my clothes off. And I was like, no.
Like, that's not helping. Yeah.
I just got back from Iraq. This is not hot.
Right.
So they sat me down for a few hours. I got myself under control. And the medic there had never been to war. And he's like, stop crying. It doesn't do anything. And I said, have you ever been to war? And he said, no. And I said, F you, but the real thing. And I just really wanted to take out my aggression on him, but I wasn't physical.
Right.
But he left me alone. And then I finished sergeant school, and I was like number 2 in the class. So I did really well. And then got home, and I thought, okay, that was it. I'm fine. But then I started having all these breakdowns, to the point where one time I was driving to one of my student teaching jobs, and I could not stop crying. I couldn't stop hyperventilating. I couldn't stop shaking. And I called my older brother, who was home by then, and I said, you need to take me to the VA right now. I'm at this park in Madison, and I can't drive, and I can't function, and I need you to take me. And so he took me, and I saw a therapist and got on some anti-anxiety medication, and kind of on and off for 2 years. Yeah. And then, gosh, I started giving presentations, and that really, really helped. And then writing the book helped, and it's all been therapy since. And yeah, and I guess I don't want to say that's that, because things will still happen. I was helping my husband build a fence. He got the nail gun on. I was like tears and stressed out. Or my husband had a Glock. Oh, that's what we train the Iraqi police on. Let me see it. And he says, it's not loaded. And I open up the chamber, and the bullet pops out, and it's like, I just start shaking, and, like all these things that just, they manifest themselves. They're elusive. And so it's getting way better. But I think that I'll always be there for the rest of my life in some capacity.
And what did people tell you about what was happening to you? Did you ever get, I asked, did you get warned before you left that this might happen? After you returned, did you get was there any, you separated from the National Guard in 2009, I believe.
Yeah, but so, yeah. And, the last 2 years are just inactive.
Okay, inactive.
Inactive, unless there's like, World War III or something. So when we got home from Iraq, we had to spend about a week at Fort McCoy demobbing. And all we could think about was getting the heck out of there and getting home. And they told us, they meaning other soldiers, said, do not tell them how much death you saw. Do not tell them how much combat you saw. Because if they know everything, they're going to hold you on a mental health hold, and you won't be able to go home. So when they asked us those questions, that could have gotten us the help immediately. We all lied, because all we wanted to do was go home.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So there was a built-in incentive not to disclose any kind of trauma, so that you could get home.
Absolutely. It's been 16 months. I mean, this is in 2004. I'm really hoping that they've changed this idea since then. So I can't speak to what it's like now, but that's what we did.
Oh my. I want to open it up to comments and questions from, people here on the Zoom side, and certainly on the Facebook side too. If they have something they want to add, please do feel free to speak up, raise your hand, do whatever you need to do. Sean Hall.
So the time, after you went to the VA, and we've heard a lot of veterans talk about leaning on their battle buddies, as a woman, was that difficult to find when you were home, and where were your battle buddies at that point? I'm sure everybody was, either still deployed or around the country.
A lot. So I joined the Wisconsin National Guard that was based out of Madison. And so when I went back to college, a lot of my people were still in Madison, which was great. And we hung out. But my team leader, Ken, he's still in the military. In fact, he's retiring like next month. He has not gotten help for post-traumatic stress, and I think it's minimal if at all. And Courtney Fad, the one with the smallpox shot,
Yeah.
she's like, Laura, we were on almost every mission together. How are you suffering and I'm not? Well, she had even later onset, and now she knows what I went through, and now she's got post-traumatic stress. So we definitely talked about it, but it was interesting that it manifests itself in so many different ways and at so many different times. My older brother definitely suffered from post-traumatic stress. His is through anger and alcohol, and mine is through tears and sadness. And so he can do fireworks. I can't. So, you just lean on who you can. And I will tell you, and I have since written thank you notes upon thank you notes to my doctor, Amy Crone, who's amazing at the VA hospital, because she really was the one I leaned on.
How's your brother doing now? Great.
He's such a go-getter. He works at the VA. He manages all of the he manages all the volunteers at the VA. And he does a golf outing once a year that just last year made $35,000 for veterans within the Madison and Milwaukee area. And he gives scholarships out, and I mean, he's doing really well. Yeah.
I'm going to share a picture, and I don't know if this is you and your brother. It might not be here.
Well, that's my twin.
Okay.
He joined the Peace Corps after Joe and I got home and went to South Africa. So he too did some service. There's a picture of Joe and I where we're along the Tigris River, and I'm giving him a piggyback ride.
Got it. Yep, I know that picture. I'll find it.
So Joe was able to come and visit me in Baghdad for 6 days, the day after Christmas until January 1st. And then on January 2nd, I flew home on leave. So I got to see all of my family within a few days of each other, which was amazing. But if anybody's been to war and goes home on leave, you know that it's this weird, almost pseudo reality type of feeling. And it's great, but it goes by fast. And I did not get much alone time. Oh yeah. So that's Joe, my older brother.
Okay. That's great.
Mm-hmm.
You have 3 children now.
I do.
The oldest is 9 years old.
Yep.
In 10 years, if she says, Mom, I want to be just like you and join the Army, what will you say?
I used to be a high school teacher, and kids would ask me all the time. And I said, you need to become informed. And you need to know the good and the bad and the ugly and the beautiful, and you need to know it all. Because I was probably one of the most, if they had a chart of who was naive when they joined, I'd be at the very top of naivety. I had no idea. I like to make decisions and jump right in. And so I would inform her, and then I would help support her in whatever decision she made. And if she was joining because she wanted to pay for college, I might say, what's some other ways you could pay for college? If she wanted to join because she wanted to save her country, I'll say, you know what? I will support you, and I will love you, and I will do what I can to help you get through this. But I want to make sure that she's informed as possible, educated as possible about it.
Don Nemchek, you have your hand up, and Sean, and then Mark has a great comment here in the chat. Don Nemchek.
Laura, I salute you for coming forward and sharing your story with us. I can sense by looking at the audience on the grid, we're all riveted to your work.
Thanks,
just
Don.
a question about your PTSD treatment, Laura. Was your counselors, was your therapist, were they female or male, and did it make a difference?
Good question. Good question.
I only ever had a woman. I walked in that day. She was the first one available, and I went to her and we connected immediately. She had a woman who was going through her training and came in to do therapy with me one day as part of her training. And it was the worst situation ever. She talked to me like I was absolutely crazy and asked me really, really intense questions. I was like, you hear my intonations and my cadence, you should try to replicate that. So Amy and I got along great, and that's who I stuck with, and it was wonderful. And I got to teach her son, which was like this full circle event. It was really cool.
And I should let people know that you were not only a teacher in several different places, but also a middle school principal. Yes. Could you imagine? That's a tough job. Oh my gosh. Even Canada's greatest history teacher would never ever want to be a middle school principal. And I know because my wife is a middle school teacher. Sean Hall?
Two questions. One, going back to what you said earlier, that whenever they gave you the option and you said, whatever gets me as close to the front line, I want that.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Do you regret that decision that you made at that time?
Oh, come on, Laura.
No,
You don't regret that.
No, absolutely not. First of all, I don't believe in living life with regrets. My only minor regret is I didn't push harder to get on UW Madison volleyball team. That is my only regret in life. I have made a beautiful life because of what has happened to me in my past, right? I graduated from college and I took a year off and I called it the year of Laura, and I traveled all over the world and I spent every penny I made in Iraq. I got a VA home loan. I bought a house when I was a single woman. I got 2 master's degrees concurrently through the money that the GI Bill offered. My husband is going back to school for law enforcement as we speak because of the disability I collect.
Okay, we'll meet George's. Okay, yeah.
So anyways, I feel like, and as a principal, as just a human being on this earth, I now have a better understanding of mental health issues and how to help people. And I do believe it has helped many, many of my students to know that they have somebody that they can relate with and talk to and that understands what they're going through.
And having said that, how did you pick this? It's difficult enough to write a book. How did you pick the moments of the book that really meant the most to you?
Oh, so I took every single journal entry and I put them down there, and I was wondering, okay, do I leave this as just this? Like, do people just read my raw journal entries? And when I finally talked to the editor, I said, what do you think? And she said, no, let's do some of the more, stand in your face stories, which makes a lot of sense. And there's actually a ton that I took out at the beginning. I was dating a guy in 3rd platoon in my company and had that whole story in there and decided to take it out because it wasn't relevant to anything. He was a manipulative guy. And so every time I wrote about him, it was just really sad and disheartening. And like, I got rid of him and it's done. Like, so, there's just some things that don't need to be in there because it doesn't add to the story.
Right. Yeah. You have to, so much of writing is taking away rather than adding on. Greg Yost.
Oh, yes. Thank you so much. Thank you for your service. And thank you for the story, which came up earlier. And I do think that these are very important as a non-veteran and as a person interested in these events. And I think we all need to be more interested, but I certainly am. Thank you so much for this story. This was absolutely terrific.
Thanks.
A few questions, which some of which are sort of above your pay grade, but I want your angle on some of these. So when you were there fairly early, I guess, and things were there for a long time after the initial invasion. But when these attacks would happen, I was away for a little bit, so if you answered this, I pardon me. Was there good intelligence? Did you have a good idea, or did you have a decent idea that something was in the works, or how did that work?
I would say there was no intelligence. Oh my gosh. And I could tell you, so we would get, the first few times we got mortared in our compound while we lived in the green zone, they would say, go out, the QRF, the quick reaction force, go out in this direction and go try and find him. So we were driving aimlessly at night, looking for something that emulated a grenade launching point, which could have been the bed of a truck that they drove away 5 minutes ago and we would never find. So here we are walking through these dark alleys, walking across giant fields with our night vision goggles on, about to step on a bomb or get shot at or whatever, and out for hours doing this, putting our own selves at risk because we think the bombs came from this area. Those were some scary nights. Or stand on the roof and just be an open target and see if you can see something happen. So we never, I shouldn't say never. I can't think of a time right now where we went out on a mission because of prior intelligence that panned out. That's the picture I was talking about.
Yeah, you on a roof. That's what I thought of.
I'm gonna tell you guys about this picture real quick.
Okay.
I found this on yahoo.com.
Huh.
So every day, Yahoo was the old Google.
Yeah. Right.
And every day they would show pictures of the Iraq war or Afghanistan, like they highlighted pictures. And this is me sitting on the Iraqi roof the first day after it was, the day it was bombed. And the crazy thing about this picture is I have my finger on the trigger. And for those of you that have ever been to war, that means one thing, is that I intend to kill. Because the person taking this picture was pointing it at me from a rooftop across the street, and I thought it was a gun.
Yeah, what the heck?
I almost killed. But we have to wait till we're shot upon, right? And I felt like if I were to put him up in my sights, then they would definitely shoot me because they know I was onto him. So I was like, okay, wait to shoot me, and then I'm gonna lift it up. But my finger was on that stinking trigger, and my gun was on fire. And that is not the first time that happened at war. I have many other stories about that, but then I realized it was a photographer, and I chilled out a little bit after that.
Let that sink in. I mean, I know we have people on the program who must have experienced that kind of thing. Bob Miswa?
I had a question for Laura.
Yeah.
Our tours of duty actually were simultaneous. I was in Baghdad all of 2004.
Wow.
I went to Fort McCoy and trained the winter of 2003.
Oh my gosh.
The worst winter Wisconsin had in 10 years. I remember going out on a map reading course in 10 to 12 inches of snow to get ready for the desert. then we went to Camp Victory.
Yes.
Sat around for a month.
Oh,
and I got the privilege of driving the whole way to Baghdad because my assistant driver didn't have a license. So it's amazing because there was an MP unit right across the dirt road from I was with the 458th Combat Engineers there. And where was your MP unit based out of? Were you in Victory?
Ours? Well, we were in Victory before we went up. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
I mean, we could have been right across from you.
Well, there was a West Point captain. She was the commanding officer of the MP unit across the street from us.
No.
Okay. But you're talking about this stuff, and I'm laughing. I'm saying I can relate to that.
Yeah, I've been watching you nod, Bob, to a lot of this.
Hey, the only good thing about my drive to Baghdad was halfway there in a dust storm, I looked out and here comes an Iraqi in a Lawrence of Arabia outfit with a scimitar sword, his camel, and I'm yelling at my, I don't want to even call him assistant driver, to take pictures of him, because it was one of those, oh my God,
he was riding a camel?
Oh yeah, he had a camel and he had a scimitar, and he, you remember Peter O'Toole dressed.
Oh yeah.
Exactly. He comes up on the side of the road, and I'm looking at him yelling. I can't think of the kid's name. He was from Indiana, University of Pennsylvania. He got mobbed, and he was sleeping and missed the opportunity of getting a picture of this dude. I mean, it was classic.
There were a lot of classics like that.
Yeah.
Laura, I have a question about this picture. What is going on here?
All right, so this is our original shower. We took this was behind the camo that you see is a beautiful fountain that we turned on like one time. Mm-hmm. And what we did was we connected a garden hose to this fountain, and we just used a knob to turn on the fountain water to go through our garden hose, and that's what we showered with. So there was no hot or cold. It was whatever the ground temp was, that's what you showered with. We found these pieces of metal that had been shot out of the building when the building was bombed, because we lived in a bombed out resort that was owned by Saddam Hussein's number 9 guy. I mean, we lived in literal rubble. And we jutted those in the ground, and then we put our ponchos around it. And so we had 2 showers. I don't know if you can see, but Courtney Fat is sticking her head out of one of the poncho head holes. Yep. So we took a lot of pictures around our compound, and we played like Where's Waldo with them for fun. Like, this is, where you find the fun and the joy at war. And I will also tell you that oftentimes the air pilots, the helicopter pilots would hover above the shower stalls to wait and see women showering.
I thought you were going to say to blow the walls down. Sean?
I was just looking at the cover of your book, and why did you decide on that particular picture of yourself? It doesn't necessarily scream military, so I was.
That was not my idea.
Okay.
Laura Colbert's version is a blue oil funnel that costs 99 cents and just how to pee standing up. I mean, talk about intrigue and enigmaticness and like, ooh, what's this about? My editor said, we are not a hardware store. We're going to sell you. This is about you. We're going to put a picture of you on here. And so I sent her a number of pictures, including, like, I wanted to do kind of a split screen with me, this picture of me, and then like a tough picture of me, and like have them both on the cover. But I didn't have a choice.
I think your editor ruined it. I mean, no, not really, not seriously, but yeah, that would be an intriguing cover. Greg Yost, and then I had another question. Actually, first, here is a picture, and you don't have to explain this one. I know what this is exactly. This is the swimming pool that the Navy Seabees built for you, so that you could use it in your off time, right? No?
Nobody built this for us. So this
nobody built this for, I would have thought
like I
that.
said, we moved into a resort that one of Saddam Hussein's top guys owned. And we lived in the big resort building. My platoon of 33 people lived in that resort building and bombed out rooms. And this was a pool. And then on the other side of the pool were a whole bunch of like mechanic and probably like the chef quarters and the maid quarters. And that's where the rest of the company lived.
So the Army, Army engineers didn't build this for you. You must think I'm such an idiot, Laura.
No, I don't.
Because I was joking, but Greg Yost.
Here's one that's struck me a few times long before, just years ago. And I'd like all the veterans to chime in, Iraq, Vietnam. Did people who grew up in rural areas do better out in the country, and people who grew up in urban areas do better in Baghdad? In other words, if you were stationed in Baghdad, was it better to have come from the Bronx? If you were stationed in the boonies, was it better to have come from Montana?
I've never thought of that before.
Greg, I think that's a good question, because I've heard just over the years our vets say, I grew up in the country, so I was familiar with firearms. I knew what I was doing. I knew how to, proceed quietly. And then others, like, I was a city kid. This was all new to me. Bob Miswa?
I tell you, my experience is it's how well you are trained.
How well you're trained.
How well you are trained. My armor unit in Vietnam, top-notch training, battalion commander down, and it paid off when you got in combat. Because I remember that one armored cavalry unit, they got their asses kicked royally, and we went in there and we had to clean it up. And I credit that training. I remember we used to complain about our battalion commander, but it paid off in combat. I remember seeing him at one of our reunions, and I personally thanked him for his training us the way he did. We complained about him in Vietnam, but I'll tell you what, after the smoke cleared, it was like, oh God, thank God we had Colonel Meyer. That's all I got to say.
Laura, would you say that you were well trained?
That hesitation should answer your question.
Okay.
So when we were at Fort McCoy, we were training for Vietnam. We were going to the woods. We were doing arm and hand signals. We knew where our enemies were. We were flanking our enemies, and we were attacking them.
Right.
We were not driving through an urban environment. We were not, there was no tall buildings around us, or we were not searching. The only relevant training we had was MOUT training, which is like urban, when you knock down doors.
Right.
So, and that was applicable because I was the lead person. I mean, talk about freaking G.I. Jane, right? I had a pistol in one hand and I had a flashlight in the other, and I'm kicking the door down and I'm yelling clear, and my troops come in after me, and I go to the next room and I yell clear. And that is the epitome of like a well-oiled artistic machine when you can execute something like that well. But as far as driving through an urban environment and getting shot at with IEDs on the side of the road, absolutely not. It didn't exist before we were deployed.
So that was on the job training that you did, that you did a lot of learning, the learning curve, as you say in your promo for the book, is very steep. And it
Absolutely.
especially was so in Baghdad in 2003, 2004.
Yeah.
Laura, thank you so much for joining us tonight. This is such a pleasure. I take back everything I said about you should all be off in nice weather tonight, because this was really a fascinating conversation, unlike many that we have on our program. So I'm grateful that you joined us.
Well, thank you for having me. It was such a pleasure.
I want to remind people that we would love to have them take our survey. We have a 3-question survey. It'll take you 1 minute. What do you think of this program? Would you like or not like about it? What do you have to suggest to improve it? We can put it in the chat right now. I will add it to the chat. And if you haven't taken our survey about our programs, we really do appreciate it if you do. We've learned a lot from it so far. I think we're approaching now about 35 responses that we've gotten over the past couple weeks. So, and it was some really good suggestions. So I'm grateful to all of you. Again, no program 1 week from tonight, July 4th, but we do have a breakfast in Sewickley, northwest of Pittsburgh, on Wednesday morning. We will have a bunch of people there do our storytelling at Christ Church at Grove Farm. And then, of course, we have our screening of Top Gun Maverick on Saturday, July 2nd. If I don't see any of you there, I hope that you all have a wonderful Independence Day. Thank you again, Laura, for joining us. Please do stay in touch. All right.
Yeah,
Take care,
thank you.
everybody.